Sorry. No, 1 minute. I'll just keep it.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome to tonight's meeting, councillors. We start tonight's meeting off with a forum. We have one speaker, Erin Hume. If you wouldn't mind, Erin, coming forward, we'll give you the mic there. You can have your say. Thank you.
I would like to thank the councillors, the mayor and the general manager for allowing me this opportunity. My name is Erin Hume and I'm a Tindara resident and here are the following concerns. Lack of consultation with the new bin system and costs, lack of variations regarding FOGO bin as well as minimised red bin waste collection, exorbitant cost of increased 65%. Firstly, I want to express my absolute dismay that Greater Hume Council has neglected to survey or consult residents prior to the contractual commitment. Councils are responsible for representing their communities fairly and sustainably. Greater Hume should be advocating for residents' needs and listening to concerns and overall reducing the unnecessary financial burden on the community. The EPA is still in consultation with councils and community members, seeking feedback on the food and garden organics mandate proposal until the 15th of July. It is difficult to understand why council has committed residents to a lengthy contract when the mandates are still only proposals and may not even become legislation for our LGA. The EPA proposes that all New South Wales households will be required to have a FOGO collection from July 2030, but they are also considering exemptions for towns below a certain population size, density or specific region. The EPA may consider exemptions for councils with rural residential properties that can prove on-site recycling of organics. Council is forcing the FOGO bin on all residents, regardless of what size, without any consultation or options. Many residents are already minimising the environmental impacts of landfill by managing their green waste through personal composting, effectively addressing this issue on their own. It seems unnecessary for the council to impose a financial burden on these households when they are already complying with environmental goals. Moreover, these residents are further protecting the environment by eliminating the need for waste collection and processing by a facility. Council has the ability to identify and liaise with residents on larger lots, for example, over 4,000 square metres or greater to determine their current methods of green waste disposal, instead mandating a one-size-fits-all service. If council had surveyed the above residents, the overall impact and cost of the new contract would have been reduced considerably. Being a new service, why wasn't a shorter contract considered? Are there variations permitted within the contract if EPA requests amendments? How does council know this will be effective and sustainable for all residents? Before contracts were signed, were ratepayers notified of a 65% increase in waste charges? The Office of Local Government states that councils can charge different amounts for properties
30 seconds.
Service, indicating that councils can offer options in the services they provide to residents. Why hasn't Greater Hume done this? I seek council support to survey the needs of residents relating to their needs, promptly respond to the EPA survey before the 15th of July to assist in the implementation of the legislation. Apply to the EPA for exemptions for residents who provide proof of personal composting or for those who reside on large residential lots. This can become an opt-in for residents. Residents' waste collection fees are adjusted accordingly and allow residents an option who require a red bin emptied every week, as they do now, due to health concerns, especially in summer, baby nappies or other sanitary items and larger families. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thanks, Erin. Mr. Kane, would you be able to answer some of the questions raised?
Is there any one in particular you'd like me to answer, Erin? There was quite a bit there. I think maybe the best way to answer your question is to explain the tender process and just how councils go about entering into a waste tender. But first and foremost, council has to have a tender for the collection of waste. It's not negotiable. So our waste contract was finishing in June 30th this year. We must have a tender. We must have something in place because not picking up the bins is not an option. And so what has happened is that council has gone to tender collectively with the whole region, try and get some economies of scale in that tender process. And so the actual population that may be involved in that tender is far bigger than Greater Hume. It's 150, probably 160,000 people, probably getting closer to 200,000 people. And the idea is that by being part of that group, we're more attractive to tenderers to give us a better price because of the economies of scale. And so that's one reason why council didn't tender on its own. And the tendering process for waste involves dealing with multinational companies, and everything has to be very, very robust. And so the level of documentation that's required is very, very comprehensive, and it actually it's taken the group that's involved in the tender process nearly 2 years to get to this point where we're awarding the tender. And so when we're putting the tender together, we can only go on available information at that time, nearly 2 years ago, when this mandate was put across by the EPA, and whether they're now backtracking a little bit in terms of what they're requiring, and that information wasn't available to us 2 years ago when we were starting the tender process. So to a certain extent, a lot of council's decisions are locked in. And yeah, the fact that we're going for a 10-year period where that mandate kicks in at some point, the best information that we had led us that we should be engaging in that contract at this point in time. But I might say, like, in terms of organic service, the last contract that just finished was also for 10 years period, and council was offered an organic service at that time, which we didn't take. And we were the only council in the group that didn't take that service because there was no mandate from the EPA, and the price and other considerations and the timing wasn't right for council. But in this instance, the settings have changed, and I think that's why the organic services being brought in at this point in time, because that was the available information that we had. But the other thing I might leave you with is if council wasn't part of that wider group and we were tendering in isolation, even though the price has gone up, it may have even gone up. It likely would have gone up anyway because of the market conditions, and also the fact that council tendering on its own in itself is not, it's a very small offering, and we may not have achieved anywhere. We could have done worse out of it in the tender process. So unfortunately, well, I hope that answers your question as best I can on short notice. Up to you.
Further comments around the table?
No, could I just comment? I think Colin has answered main points that Erin covered and that council was considering when we were going through the tender process. It is a big, long process to go through, and I think we've got as good a deal as we can get, and I think Colin's covered quite well. Thank you.
And with all council services, whether they be water or sewage, you can't opt in and opt out. If the water goes past your place, you'll pay for the service needed goes. Same with the sewage.
Yeah, I understand that. There are, as I've been looking around, other councils within the country that are allowing residents on over 4,000 square metre blocks to opt out. So from a resident's perspective, we kind of would like in that council to work, but our council can't. And I guess when we're not surveyed, we're not consulted with, we're just pushed into this contract for 10 years, not knowing that if things are going to change or be pushed back like they have already with the EPA. We've got no option, we've got no choice. There's no democracy with this. We don't need it. Me personally, as a resident, I don't need the green waste bin. I don't need anything to go into it, but I'm forced into paying for it as a one size fits all. I feel that if we were consulted with as residents to see it as a needs based, maybe the cost of the contract may have been lower, because you may find that there is not actually a great need for it for some residents.
Mr. Chairman, can I just make a further comment along the lines of what Erin's just mentioned, in that you know, we may not have necessarily needed it. We've been asked by many residents over the last, I'd say, 10 years, where is our green bin? Where is our bin for our green waste? Not a lot of people, but it's getting, you know, it has been increasing. So, you know, it's not something that's just sort of flipped along and we've decided that's a good idea. It is something that people have been asking for.
No doubt there would be a need for some residents, but for a lot, there's no need. So I guess, you know, I know you can't please everyone,
No.
but I feel that through consultation, we probably could have eliminated some of that.
Well, I personally don't need it for myself. So, you know, I'm in the same situation as you.
Yeah. Well, I personally not happy paying for something that I don't need. You know, inflation, cost of living, families are doing it really tough at the moment. And I know that $179 extra per year, it's not a great amount, but it's $15 a month. And for some families, that's huge at the moment. Absolutely huge, particularly you're not using that service. It doesn't seem fair.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think it's also relevant that ratepayers are aware that because of this cost incurred with the FOGO service, that this council will resolve not to increase rates for the next financial year to lessen the burden.
So I believe, so you're saying that you've asked for them not to?
We resolve not to increase to keep up with the rate pay for the next financial year. General rates. General rates, not the average rates.
Yeah.
So they're what we are trying to minimise the cost.
Any further comments? No, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillors, I'll declare tonight's meeting open and ask Councillor Shield to lead us in prayer, please.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Heavenly Father, we thank you for all your blessings. We ask for your strength and guidance throughout this meeting and thereafter as we look to serve the residents of the Shire. We ask for clear thinking, sincere hearts as we approach the business matters we will be discussing shortly. We ask for your blessings upon this meeting, each participant and the work and people they represent. Amen.
Thank you, Councillor Shield. Acknowledgement the country. I pay my respects to elders both past and present. Any apologies or leave of absence required?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I will require leave of absence for the 18th of July meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilton.
I'll say that.
We moved and seconded. Councillor O'Neill, Councillor Hicks, the leave of absence be granted. Councillor Wilton, all in favour? Those against, declare it carried. We move on to the confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting on the 15th of May. It's been moved by Councillor Meyer, seconded by Councillor Wilton. Questions, comments, corrections? If not, I'll put the resolution. All in favour? Those against, declare it carried all the way. We move on to the action report from the minutes. If you have a question, quote the page and the number, please.
Yes, ma'am, sorry.
Councillor O'Neill.
Page 7, these are both 6605 and 6614. I'm just wondering, we've got progress at 50%, but we've got statuses completed, so sort of one does not go with the other.
So through you, Mr. Chair, that's probably just an oversight. Sometimes with the report, when you change the progress, it likes to mark it as complete. So we're happy to take that and ensure that it then has been covered. Yeah.
Good thing, yeah, that's all.
Any further comments?
Page 5, 6539. Just to prompt our memories, it's a development application there. but just, which development application, maybe if it was named, it might make our, help our old memories a little more, because we've got quite a few developments in the book, on the books at the moment. So it's, just make it a bit easier to follow.
I'll take that on board.
Thank you.
I think that my memory is a little hazy coming around too, but I'm gonna say that was the wall subdivision that we considered, because it's stage subdivision, and that's what that was. I think
The new one on
the
the,
28 lot one. I think that is the one on the southern end of.
The first one was a 45 lot, subdivision, for fuel, but this is the second one.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, just through you,
I actually.
oh, sorry, just before you go, Colin, can we just make sure that we're using the microphones? We have had some issues with sound in this room, and it won't be improved at all if we're not using our microphones, councillors and staff. Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, we'll have another go at that. I think it's the Colquhoun subdivision, and I think it's actually our subdivision. That's what's.
I did have a question about.
Yes.
just to confirm that. Just 6540 on page 5 as well. The list of projects for that LRCIP round 4, the Bowler Street footpath, I know we've okayed all of that, but we did, Councillor Mayor Quinn and myself had been approached from some residents in Bowler Street. So just something to think about. They would prefer, they really don't want that footpath completed the full length. They would rather see the money for that deferred to the path around near the preschool, because I feel that was more deserving than to finish that one in Bowler Street. So I just wanted that to be mentioned, because we did come and speak to several of the residents in Bowler Street. So yeah, that was just something to think about, that they thought more of the, it'd be more suitable for the children to go safely at the preschool, not walk through the wet grass or puddles. Thank you.
Can I comment on that, Mr. Mayor? Please? I don't know how many residents you are referring to, but there are not many who do not want that. But as for referring and using the money at the school, at the preschool, that is going to happen in any case, which I told those people about. So they're just trying to create a bit of mischief, I think. I know they don't want it, but it's a very ordinary street, and we need a footpath for the residents in that street. People who are pushing prams, people who are in wheelchairs, people who walk, and little kids catching buses and so on. It's necessary.
Councillor,
Comments on
oh, I just wanted to clarify, is it Swift Street that they're referring to, or is it but Wallace Street or Swift Street that they're saying that they would rather the money be spent on?
Well,
the preschool's already.
It's in the program.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I thought. That's what I was thinking.
that was just a comment. I'm passing on comments that were passed on to us. Thank you.
Further comments on the action report? If not, we'll move on to the disclosures of interest. We've got 2 disclosures of interest. One from Councillor Shield and one from Councillor Parker. They're both non-pecuniary interests. And they'll both step away from the table when their item comes up. Thank you. We move on to the reports of the officers. And the first one is the execution of the planning agreement with the Glen Ellen Solar Farm.
Move the recommendation.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Morris, seconded by Councillor Wilton. Any comments? If not, all in favour? Those against, declare it carried. Now we'll move on to item 2, which is council parking. Declare an opportunity.
I'll move that recommendation.
Been moved by councillor Hicks. And,
Yeah, I'll second that.
seconded by councillor Wilkie. We didn't say who's place, because we normally not say that at the time.
I don't just get the increase.
Not normally, Mr Mayor, we don't always name the owner of the land.
Does come up in one of the annexes, I think, the name.
That's all. Any further queries on it? Questions? The new development, all in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Why? First item on the governance report is the delivery program for the 22-26 of the operation plan for 24-26, including estimates of income and expenditure for 24-28 and revenue policy 24-28. Complete summary of our operation plan, delivery plan.
Got an amendment to that motion, if that's all right.
Councillor Parker. Seconder. Councillor Meyer.
Amendment. I've got an amendment.
Yep.
Yep. Happy for me to read it out? I know you're going to vote.
Well done, if you what you move the motion.
No.
We move the motion. To councillor Linda. Second councillor Meyer, right, your amendment is.
My amendment is that the operational plan and budget are the most important documents to council. Councillors were presented with a delivery program and operational plan on the 5th of June workshop that was very different to the one that was on public exhibition. We are not yet received any commentary on the changes made to the exhibition plan and how these changes affected the budget. Any changes made to the delivery program should be reported to council in a business paper outlining the reasons for the change. Councillors are being asked to adopt a document in no way represents what has been presented to the public, and in doing so shows a lack of transparency to the ratepayers. Therefore, I ask for this report to be held over, and we hold an extraordinary meeting on next Wednesday, the 26th of June. And councillors need to have a report, including all changes that have been made to the plans after they went on exhibition and the reasons why the changes were made.
Very general amendment, councillor Parker, can you give some illustrations where the changes have been made?
I did give those examples at the workshop, Mr. Mayor.
The rates were set 2 months ago after this workshop.
I'm not worried about the rates. I'm worried about the changes in the operation plan.
I think that the matters for councillor Parker's been clear in her concerns. We felt we're briefed and that the exhibition period and any changes to the plan were clearly outlined in the meeting and subsequent information that was provided through to council, including the updated delivery plan as part of my normal fortnightly update. However, councillor Parker feels that that's not sufficient, so she's put an amendment which I believe would probably just needs to be considered by council.
We've got a second, councillor Parker.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Wilkie. Madam, open for discussion, are speakers for the motion or speakers for
The amendment.
amendment?
Yes, I'll speak to the amendment, Mr. Chair. I think the document was put on display. We received some alterations, significant alterations, and the next document, or the document wasn't amended after being on display. So it's now been amended and it hasn't gone out for exhibition or for further comment. Now, we really need to have notations placed next to the document or on the document for us to amend it and to accept it. And I have another matter which needs to be aired tonight, and that is a matter of considerable interest to our budget, and that is to do with a clean-up notice which we've received, and it would appear that that's never been reported to council. It's never been reported to the ARIC committee, and the financial consequences and the reputational consequences of that clean-up notice are significantly sufficient to create issues with our council. The cost of that clean-up is a lot of money, and it's going to put a big hole in our budget for which we have no provision in our budget. And I think we need to seriously consider taking this amendment up and having our meeting next Wednesday, when we've got more notations to the changes to the draft budget, and we can have some consideration taken into that, some consideration for the this clean-up notice, for which we've never been informed about. And it's never been reported to ARIC either, and I think we are in breach if we're not very careful. Thank you.
I think the latter part of the statement made by Councillor Wilton refers to particular quarry rehabilitation. In terms of the context of the budget, there is a significant provision in the budget because this has been an ongoing challenge for council and the parties involved. I have been requested that there was a briefing for council, which we will do in July, but because of the nature of the content of this, it's not really the best, I think, to be able to be discussing it fully and frankly within open council. So I would suggest that if the council want to lay, there's no budget implication that would be of concern. We have fully provided for, and it's also fully reported as a contingent liability in our annual reports, which are currently being audited. So again, I would suggest that there's an amendment before council that they need to consider before we decide where we go to with the budget adoption tonight.
Mr Mayor, I feel that's a separate issue to what Councillor Parker is putting forward at the moment, to the immediate document that we're talking about, rather than adding an opportunity for and adding to the complexity of the motion.
Speaking against the amendment, we had a workshop. There were several glitches stated. All those glitches have been adjusted, and now the plan is presented to council for its adoption. When you have a bite of the cherry, you have a bite of the cherry, and that was on the workshop. And all those ideas were taken on board. Wherever they were missed, they were put in. I was accused by outside sources that I'd put the same report in as last year, but when it went out for public exhibition, it was last year's report, and you'll find out there's a total new report in this year's. So I think everything's up to scratch, and I don't think there's any need to have a special meeting about this. I support the motion. Further speaking.
Mentioned, I seconded the motion. Originally, I am also in favour of the amendment. We'll leave a week's grace, but do us all good in being able to have a good look at it.
Does that fit in with the timeline to have that completed? if we wait another week?
I think, sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, my chief financial officer has expressed the concern that none of the numbers, apart from a minor change in supplementary rates, have changed from the report that was originally on exhibition. And perhaps, Dean, for the sake of expediency, did you just want to go through, and for the benefit of the gallery who may not be aware of what's been discussed, what changes were to the operational budget between the original exhibition and the draft, might I emphasise, that went to the council workshop in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, sure. As far as I'm aware, the only change that's been made to what went on display is the final rates calculation based on the March supplementary levies. That was a change of, in round terms, $7,000 to revenue increase. And that's the only change that I'm aware of in the budget numbers.
I wasn't just referring to the budget. I was actually referring to the operational plan, not the budget.
Further comments?
I understand councillor Parker's concerns, Mr Chair, but based on what on the operational plans that's provided to the public, are we satisfied that those notational changes that weren't there and that are there now, are they really relevant to the general public?
My only answer to that is, if the general public read it, they could ask the questions. But it's a big document, and those mistakes have been adjusted. That's now fact. Further comments?
Mr Mayor, if you put something on exhibition, that's the opportunity for people, ratepayers, to have their comment. If you then change what's on exhibition, they can't make comment on it. So if I go down the street and someone says to me, why isn't this happening in this financial year, or why isn't this happening at all because it's been pulled, what am I going to say? Oh, I'm sorry, we changed that because we chose to change it.
So you have an exhibition, councillor Parker, you get comments, then you have another exhibition, it goes on forever and a day. There is a time when you put things out, you get public comment, you analyse them, and you move forward. Further comments? If not, I'll put the amendment. Those in favour? Councillor Meyer, Councillor Parker, Councillor O'Neill, Councillor Parker and Will. Those against? Other 5. I'll put the original motion. Those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. You're against?
Yeah.
Councillor
Against, yeah.
Wilson, against?
Just perhaps, sorry, just perhaps allow that, I'm going to take her a moment to get that, that notated. So we've got councillor Walton and Parker report against, with the other recorded against, so we have all, as well, councillor Meyer, you want to be recorded against?
Want to be recorded against.
Okay, so all 4 against them.
Mr Mayor, regarding the other issue that I raised with the clean-up notice, can we have, can I move a motion that that be put into closed council for discussion?
We can have a briefing on that, closed council, yes.
Thank you.
Right,
Yep, we're good. Sorry, yes, we are. We're good, Mr Mayor.
we'll move on to the second item, the order list of including committee. Independent member, term of reference.
So moved.
I'll second.
Councillor Fuel.
Just through you, Mr Mayor, there is just an amendment we need to make to the resolution. So in the resolution at the moment, we haven't got a councillor that to be appointed as the observer because we weren't certain who that councillor would be. So we have the independent members listed there in their terms. And we just need to have, a councillor name inserted to complete the resolution.
Hold on, but councillor Parker, give a second. Second, councillor Linda, any further nomination?
Is that all right? Councillor Wilton, you happy with that?
All in favour, those against, councillor Parker, councillor
Okay.
So then I'll put the recommendation, all in favour, those against, declare it carried all the way. Tender for the provision of managed IT services.
I'll move that recommendation.
Councillor Gill, we move by councillor Hicks, second by councillor Linda. Any comment? I'm amazed at the number of tenders in the footy group. No further comments. All in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Right, councillor Gill with that. Move on to number 4, the policy development and decisions.
Move the recommendation.
Moved by councillor O'Neill, recommendation down the bottom for the
I'll second that motion.
councillor Gill, O'Neill. Child safety policy and the corporate credit purchasing card use. All in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. The next 2 items are referred to closed council. Moved by councillor Wilson, second by councillor Parker. All in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. The B items, any questions or?
I'd just like to say that that report that we got from the chair of REROC was very, very, very good.
Took a long time to get that together, but actually, what the chair signed off, it's the executive lady that puts it together, and she's phenomenal.
Very impressive.
Certainly, you missed at the end of the year. Further comments on B or C or council leader?
Mr. Mayor, I've just got a question regarding part C on page 79. Regarding urban roads, town maintenance, and also sports ground maintenance, I'm very concerned that the money's being sought from the rural roads maintenance budget, given that rural roads are such an integral part of our network, and given that such a significant part of our rate base comes from the rural sector, I personally don't like seeing that money would be taken out of the rural roads budget. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to make a comment in relation to that. In relation to the over expenditure, that it's mainly in the rural areas of the sports grounds that the over expenditures occurred. We've done a lot of work at Woolbundry because the committee have done a lot of good work getting their irrigation and grass planted, but we've actually been doing a lot of extra mowing up there. So there's been additional costs in Woolbundry, as well as Bockasford. We helped out with the MND. We've done mowing of the grounds and things like that. So, and Walla, there's been a new shade sail, well, not a new one, it's been replaced, the shade sail there. So it's actually not been on any of our high profile grounds. The additional expenditure has been on other areas, making up a lot of those costs. So I understand that in this year's budget, we've spent, the other thing to recognise, we've spent an additional $7 million plus on the road network, which is more than double what the rural road networks ever had before through disaster funding. So this year we've had some additional costs in the sports grounds, but in no way have we impacted financing of the rural road. We've spent a lot and we chase money, we do that. So, and interesting, this month where it's been a little bit higher than it should be, a lot of it's been in those rural type areas because the footy clubs are pretty important in those areas and sports grounds are important. So there is a bit of correlation. I'm not saying all of it. There's been some other works that needed to happen in other grounds, but in general, and it has been in the rural areas as well, why there's been over expenditure. So it is rural people that's getting an advantage. It's not an urban-based area that's getting a lot of advantage from this over expenditure. Happy for any other questions.
Mr Mayor, just on page 73, under the library services, it's great to see so much happening in our libraries. There's just a bit disappointing with the letters that went out in regards to the mobile library users, and then only 9 responded. So that's a bit disappointing to hear, unless the more have come in since this has been put together.
Thanks, councillor Shield. I don't believe there's been a whole lot of response from those letters. From what I understood in speaking to the customer relations coordinator, she mentioned that people seem relatively happy to come into the satellite library. So, and then a handful of people have contacted her, and she's working with them on how she can deliver some books out there, and she's going to take some iPads and work with a small handful who relied on that service. So I feel like overall it's still relatively positive.
My thing to come up. My red light needs to come on. Thank you for that, Louise. Yes, it was just, seemed to be a lot of people were going to be disappointed, but then they've adjusted already, so that's great. Yep, thank you.
So just in relation to the library report again, the book nooks and story time, they're in Henty, Colcan and Holbrook, and I'm just wondering why Ginger wasn't included in those 2 areas of the library.
I have to take that on notice, councillor O'Neill.
They are popular, the little book nooks. The little people love sitting there and having a read while mum's having a coffee.
Somebody can move the B, C and D.
I'll move those.
Seconded.
Thank you, councillor. Torrens, any further comments? If not, all in favour, those against, declare it carried. Somebody move that we go into the confidential section.
So moved.
Councillor Wilson, second, councillor Linda, all in favour, declare it carried.